When you look around the NFL at the successful teams, they are doing one of two things. They are either stacking talent around a quarterback on a rookie deal like the Chiefs did, or they are building a team using value as the guiding principle while paying a premium for a franchise quarterback. Both methods can lead to success. The key factor that makes both these philosophies work is having a franchise quarterback in the first place. Looking at the Dallas Cowboys specifically, the debate over a franchise quarterback becomes the $35 million question. Is Dak Prescott worth the massive contract the Cowboys are about to pay him? In my opinion, that answer is yes, and I'm going to show you why in this video. For this breakdown, I feel like we need to go through the Cowboys season chronologically to illustrate what happened to this team. Also, we can use this to talk about the most common arguments for and the most common arguments against Dak being one of the better signal callers in the NFL as well. Starting with the Week 1 game against the Giants, Dak played his best game of the season by far. A perfect passer rating, 4 touchdowns, and over 400 passing yards to his name, he was pretty unbelievable, making some truly impressive throws. Check out this one in the second quarter. After lining up in a trips left formation at a shotgun, Dak motioned Amari Cooper across the field. Seeing a defender trail indicated the Giants were playing man coverage. They were in cover 1. Dak identified this pre-snap and found the matchup that he liked. He saw Michael Gallup one-on-one against rookie DeAndre Baker. Now, Baker was one of the Giants' first-round picks last season, and he improved over the year, but the start of his 2019 campaign was rough to say the least. Gallup used a simple hesitation step and good hand fighting down the field to keep him at bay. Seeing this, Dak only had one place to put the ball to guarantee an uncontested catch. Up the sideline, leading him away from the center of the field defender. That's where he put it and allowed Gallup to bring it in for the 36-yard gain. This wasn't the only time that Dak took advantage of Baker in this contest. Later in the same quarter, Dak made Baker pay for a touchdown on another fade route. Dak used a similar pre-snap motion to identify man coverage, and seeing that, Dak knew he had another one-on-one opportunity up the sideline. If he wanted to take the shot, he had to place it deep in the end zone. That's what he did here. Dak saw Cooper immediately beat Baker on an inside delayed release, and he threw the ball into the back of the end zone, leading him for the touchdown. What impressed me throughout the season was that Dak took more shots like this one and was more accurate than I've seen him in the past. According to Pro Football Focus, Dak was the 4th best deep ball thrower in terms of accuracy with an adjusted completion percentage of over 52. This is up there with the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Drew Brees, all really good company to have. Now, I mentioned adjusted completion percentage, and this accounts for things like drops, throwaways, spikes, and plays where the quarterback was hit so he reasonably couldn't throw a catchable pass. Out of these factors, drops were a horrible problem for the Cowboys. Dak's receivers dropped over 7% of his passes, which was the highest drop rate in the entire NFL looking at QBs with over 250 attempts. This is just absurd, and it led to stalled drives and turnovers where the ball bounced off his receiver's fingers directly into a defender's hands. I don't want to undersell this point because it's pretty important. For how good the Cowboys receivers are on paper, and Cooper and Gallup are both phenomenal players at creating open windows, they each have serious issues with drops. I never really appreciated just how bad it actually was until I started watching them in detail this offseason. Now, if you pay close attention to that last play, the throw was definitely behind the receiver. Cooper had to slow down to try to grab it. He couldn't pull it in, which is what led to this interception. From my film study, I noticed this was a common trend for Dak throughout the season. He has a nasty habit of throwing behind his targets. Too many of his throws force the receiver to reach behind them or to slow down on things like crossing routes when Dak needed to do a better job leading them. These passes were usually still catchable, but they made the receiver work harder than they needed to. For example, on a 3rd and 3 against the Saints, the Cowboys ran a mesh concept. Dak had Randall Cobb open on one of the shallow crosses, however, his pass was behind. Again, this pass is catchable, and I credit Cobb with the drop because it hit his hands, but let's not pretend this is an easy catch. It's far from a perfectly thrown ball that would have made it much easier for him to bring it in. The placement forced Cobb to turn his body to secure it, and he simply couldn't. Now, drops were a huge problem as I already mentioned before, and Cobb was also one of the main culprits. He dropped 9 last season, representing a whopping 14% drop rate. This is a big reason why Cobb is no longer with this team. To replace him, the Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma in the 1st round, and he's a player who I really like, and I also did a video on him on this channel, so make sure you check that out. Moving on, and regardless of all these drops, I just kept getting this feeling that Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy need to let Dak play more freely. Dak also played much better in the 2-minute drill when he was forced to have a sense of urgency. He was more aggressive, he would take some big hits all while maintaining a good level of accuracy, and also Dak would use his scrambling ability to move the chains. He would do this anytime his receivers couldn't beat their coverage, and it worked out really well for this offense. One thing that I really liked about watching Dak this season was that he always seemed comfortable banging in passes to his target in tight windows when it was his first read or a scheme-designed throw. He's great at backside digs, for example, after determining before the snap where the ball should go. This was one of his best throws, and he destroyed cover 3, cover 1 defenses with this pass. Kellen Moore would design plays where the trip side would take away the hook curl linebackers, and then Dak would bang in there with great anticipation. For example, against the Redskins in Week 2, the Cowboys lined up in trips left. Before the snap, Dak identified the receiver he wanted to take advantage of. He saw Jason Witten split out to his right against Josh Norman, who was outside leverage. He knew that Witten, even in his old man age, could still stretch Norman outside before cutting sharply back inside. Dak trusted him to win on this play. He threw the ball perfectly, and he was rewarded with an 18-yard completion. These throws where Dak hits the top of his drop and hammered it in there are what Dak excelled at all season long. Hitches, digs, and slants, especially against out-leveraged defenders, were Dak's bread and butter this season. These throws kept the offense on time, and it kept them consistently moving the chains down the field. Now where Dak would occasionally struggle was when it would come to timing, where he had to progress to his second or third read. Dak has plenty of arm strength to get the ball there, but he'd sometimes be a half of a second later than I thought he should have been. Also, what was infuriating was that Dak would turn down throws that I thought he should have taken. He would sense a defender in the vicinity, and he'd move away even though there was a window to make a pass. Now, some of these throws were definitely what you call NFL windows, but they're certainly big enough for a quarterback like Dak to get them in there. All he has to do is throw with good timing, but too frequently he turned them down, wanting a cleaner look. The other area that I think Dak needs to work on is his pocket awareness. For my film study, this was hit or miss all season. Sometimes he was excellent, would step up avoiding pressure to make a good throw in the structure of his offense, but other times he was late in identifying where the pressure was coming from and would allow defenders into his face before he reacted. One thing I constantly noticed was that he doesn't always move to flow with the pocket. What I mean by that is if the pocket was collapsing to one side, he needs to shift to the opposite side to take advantage of the open space. He didn't always do this, and it would sometimes leave him stationary reading the field while the pocket collapsed in front of him. Check out this play against the Giants in the second quarter. Dak should feel the pressure and move to his right way before he's forced to. Instead of naturally shifting with good footwork, he has to use his arm to separate himself from his blocker like he did on this play. Now, Dak did a fantastic job escaping the pocket to extend the play, which again are all positives, but I want to see him sense the pressure before it gets there, and I want him to shift more freely in the pocket. Again, this play went from a potentially bad sack to him scrambling outside finding an open receiver who scored a touchdown, but the point remains the same. I want him to be more consistent sensing the pressure around him. This is just something that he needs to work on, even though it didn't happen all the time. Moving on, while I've shown you a combination of positive plays and negative plays throughout this breakdown to give you a full understanding of who Dak is as a quarterback, I want to cover one of the main detractors people use to justify that Dak isn't a good quarterback. They look at one particular game and just how poorly he played, and then use that as evidence to say that he's not as good as people think he is. That game was the Eagles match in Week 16. The Cowboys flew to Philly to face them in a do-or-die situation. In this one, Dak came up horribly short. In a must-win situation, Dak was pretty awful, and it led to the Cowboys missing the playoffs. From this game, if you wanted one play that really stands out to me that pretty much encapsulates every bad thing I saw from Dak in this one, look no further than the first quarter. This one still drives me bonkers. It's 3rd and 3, and you have a trips bunch on the right with a solo receiver on the left. The Eagles are pretty much showing they're in cover 1 robbery before the snap. You can tell by the alignment of the safeties, and you can tell by the alignment of the cornerbacks as they face the bunch on the right. Seeing this defensive alignment, Dak knows to look at the bunch side of the play first. His order of reach should be the following: Cobb on the wheel route as an alert throw against man coverage, Gallup on the solo drag, followed by Witten on the dig over the middle, and finally Cooper on the bunch side drag. That's Dak's order for this play, and he horribly misreads it. Instead of seeing his first alert read beat an out-leveraged defender to the sideline on what could have been a big play, Dak moved on to his next read. That's miss number 1. Dak then looked at Gallup and rightfully turned him down. He saw he was facing double coverage from the robber safety. Instead of then realizing that double coverage on Gallup meant that somebody else was open, like Jason Witten on his dig route, Dak skipped forward to his 4th and final read on this play. This is miss number 2. Now with Amari Cooper on a drag route, this is not the end of the world. Sure, you are 1 for 3 at this point, which is a failing grade by most teachers, but Dak can still salvage his play with an accurate throw to Cooper. Putting it deep and in a spot in front of him could have allowed him to run under and bring it in. I've seen Dak make this exact throw before, so I don't blame him for trying. Well, that obviously didn't work here. Dak shifted backwards to his right, threw off his back foot, and ended up underthrowing the pass, allowing the defender to break it up. This was just a horrible play from start to finish, and the Cowboys were forced to punt. I'm going to be blunt and straight up with you that the rest of this game was pretty bad as well. In this win-or-go-home game against a division rival for the NFC East, Dak wasn't just bad, he was terrible. He turned down open receivers, he threw inaccurate passes, and yes, while there were plenty of drops that I've complained about before, Dak was one of the worst players on the field. And what is crazy is that he had the opportunity to win this game on multiple throws all the way until the final drive. Hitting a wide open Tavon Austin could have been a game-altering throw. Unfortunately, Dak missed it, and the Cowboys watched the playoffs at home from their couch just like you and me. Now, this game was far from fun for me to fully analyze. Even as a Redskins fan that enjoys seeing the Cowboys lose, I hate bad football even more. Regardless of my feelings, you have to wonder why I spent the last 3 or so minutes of this video tearing apart a player that I think deserves a massive contract. In fact, you might wonder why I didn't take the opposite approach and tell you that the Cowboys should just let him walk. The reason for that is pretty simple. We as analysts can't get wrapped up in any single play or any single game to dictate our feelings. If you do this, you'll completely miss the forest from the trees. You can't sum up a player's skill set, his upside, and his entire makeup by focusing on one game. This is the reason that for this breakdown, I analyzed over 300 plays to form my viewpoint. In my opinion, our goal is to find players that showcase high-quality plays at a higher rate than their peers, while also reducing costly mistakes as well. That's our goal and how we need to look at quarterbacks. Look at Jameis Winston as your prime example. He created an absurd number of highlight throws last season, and now he's a backup quarterback for the Saints. The reason is because he also turns over the ball way too much as well. You just can't trust him. The opposite is true for a quarterback like Case Keenum. He turns over the ball less than most quarterbacks do, but he also creates way fewer big plays as well. It's all a balance. You need both upside and high-quality plays, and you need protection from the downside risk and finding quarterbacks that are better at avoiding the costly negatives. In my opinion, Dak provides that balance. Yes, he's not the playmaker that Patrick Mahomes is, and very few are, but Dak makes enough big plays that puts him ahead of most of his peers. He also drastically improved at protecting the football from costly mistakes over the last couple of seasons. This is the big reason why I still think he deserves a massive contract. Looking over the other top quarterbacks, Dak is up there in some good company. For me, he's in my tier 3 grouping as you look on your screen. You can still win with a tier 3 quarterback, but you do just need to support them with a good system to help them win games. Yes, $35 million is a lot of money. In fact, it's more than I want to offer him, but that's the going rate for at worst a top 12 quarterback. That's where Dak is. He clearly has talent, and with him being so durable, this stability at the most important position is incredibly rare. As fans, we tend to really undervalue that type of consistency when the alternative is way worse. Even if the Cowboys drafted a first-round quarterback, there is no guarantee that he'll be better than Dak even with the cost savings. We've seen many quarterbacks bust that are far more talented than Dak is. The simple truth is that Dak does have the capability to win games on his own. Even in the other games when he needs the extra talent around him, Dak still offers a ton of value to this team. The Cowboys understand that, and they've shown us as much. They re-signed Amari Cooper to a massive deal, they gave Dak a good offensive line, they drafted Michael Gallup and followed it up with CeeDee Lamb this past offseason, and even if you aren't a fan of paying Zeke $15 million a year, the Cowboys have clearly made their intentions known. They want to give him all the tools he can to succeed. Now the question is, will it be enough to win it all? As a Redskins fan, I really hope not. However, as a fan of football, the Cowboys are making the right decision. There will always be trade-offs, but paying Dak $35 million a season is worth it, and pairing him with a good supporting cast will only make their investment more valuable. Well, that's all I have for you. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining my Patreon in the link below and also subscribing to my channel. My goal is to keep releasing new videos every single week. I hope you all enjoy them as much as I love making them. Also, if you want to find me on Twitter, you can follow me at Samuel R. Gold.